Cars hanging out on track for the historic Grand Prix Car Association's Prix 66 Grand Prix Car race. And this, again, the transition between front and rear engine cars. The mid-engine, rear-engine cars like the Coopers, Brabhams and Lotuses, very much in the ascendancy, but right up until 1960 there were still front-engine Grand Prix cars, the end of the era of machines like the Maserati 250F and the Ferrari's 246 Dino, the last car to race in Grand Prix with a front engine. But by that stage, Cooper leading the charge, followed by Brabham, Lotus were very much the cars to beat. The better dynamics, better aerodynamics of the cars was telling, and of course the less mechanical bits, the less length you have, the lighter the cars were as well, and so the writing was on the wall. But we have a couple of Maserati 250Fs, two 246 Dinos, and Geraint Owen in his Curtis 500. Now, you may not know Curtis as a Formula One manufacturer. Curtis wasn't a Formula One manufacturer. They never built a Formula One car. So what on earth is an Indy Roadster doing in this race? Well, in this period, Indianapolis 500 was a race that would or could count for Formula One points. And it's fun, and it's different, and boy is it going to be a handful. The rain has, at least temporarily, stopped. The track is less soaking wet than it was, and the skies are starting to lighten. Look, there's a tiny little bit of blue, and Alistair Douglas, that gives us hope, and it must give our drivers a little bit of confidence as well.
Yes, it's absolutely brighter, and the track has been well squeegeed by those big fat Formula One wet tyres that we've just seen out, although there are still some very big puddles here and there, but not generally on the line, so we should get some good racing in this as they go through Beckett's sweepers. We've got three Cooper T53s at the front of the field.
And the very last car in the field is one that, again, is quite unusual. It's an American-built Formula One car. In fact, I can't actually see it at the tail of the field, but it should be white with a blue stripe, blue rather with a white stripe, which is the Scarab. Now, it was qualified by Eddie Maguire, but is due to be driven by Miles Griffiths, and because of the change of driver, it should be starting at the back of the field. So look for it. You can see the Talbot Largo, the pale blue car at the top of the shot. You see the more upright Cooper Bristols, the Mark IIs with the 2-litre Bristol in front of the driver, sort of car with which Mike Hawthorne made his name. Certainly the car there, car number 19, weaving with the red noseband. The driver there with an open face helmet with a peak and that half-moon visor that Mike Hawthorne is always pictured in. We were talking yesterday about maybe getting a fireproof dicky bow to go with that, because Hawthorne always raced in a leather jacket and a bow tie. But I'm not sure whether you're allowed to get away with that sort of thing. There in the midst is the big, dark red and white Curtis Roadster, the Curtis 500. And Geraint Owen, well, that thing is big, heavy, lazy and torquey. This is going to be a very large handful. It is in the dry, but I think he races it because it's an enormous hoot, and presumably less traction means more hoot worthiness. Just in front of him, weaving away, is the Maserati 246 Dino of Richard Wilson, 2.4 litre, 6-cylinder, named after, of course, Enzo Ferrari's, at that stage, late son, recently departed son Dino, after whom he created a road car brand with a 246 Dino road car. And the last of the line that bore the name Dino was the 308 GT4, before it reverted back to being called Ferrari once more with the introduction of the 308. You can see the Lotuses, traditional Lotus green and yellow wobbly wheels. Lotus 22s, Lotus 18s, the more square-sided cars. This is such a period of variety of shapes. When we look at the Formula Juniors, and there's so many, cigar tube-shaped cars, even in 1961, 62. But here you've got Well, the Curtis is an oddity, but you've got the 250F, the 246 Dino. That's a very traditional 1950s car with that front engine shape. The Cooper Bristols are similar, but the mid-engine cars have there's so much difference between the very early Coopers with the Beetle backs, the high back, and the newer, the younger cars, the Brabhams and the Lotuses, which you can see that cigar tube shape that we always think of as a classic 60s Grand Prix car is already developing.
Well, the one we're looking at now, in fact, the first three cars, the Cooper T53, which was a development of the T51, which we've also got plenty of examples in the field. But the T53, the Cooper designers had moved the engine down 1 inch, and they'd put the driver in a more reclined position. It became known as the low line, but that had a tremendous effect on immediately, as you say, the Beetle back. It's still a bit there, still got a little fin on the back, but nowhere near as high as the earlier cars. And then going through the shot, that very, very low car that almost seems to be lower than the wheels is the Lotus 27, which was a later car. And by that time, Colin Chapman had realised that if you make them into, you called it a cigar tube shape, then it was faster. The whole car, the weight of the car, much lower down.
And the Lotus 25s that you'll see as well, the low slung car, the car so intimately associated with Jim Clark. Behind the more shoebox shaped Lotus 18, again mid-engine car but a much less rounded form. That was a tube frame chassis with the body panels hung off it, which is why Sterling Moss was able to remove, or have Alf Thomas remove, the side panels to race in a super hot Monaco. And once it became a monocoque car, taking bits off, you only did that with the scenery. Car number 18 there, further back, Chris McCarthy, and 118 just ahead of him, Sam Wilson, both in Lotus 18. So you can see that square sort of shape of the car.
And the number 18 car, Clinton McCarthy, was actually the very chassis that Jim Clark won his first single-seater race. It wasn't a Grand Prix, it was a non-championship race at Brands Hatch 1960. And from there, the rest is history, as they say, with the great Jim Clark.
Well, lights are off on the safety car. We are getting ready to go racing. The Scarab is not on the grid, unfortunately. John Clark OBE's Cooper is the last car behind Luke Brandt's pale blue Turbo Largo. We are ready to release our field. The magnificent sight of 45 pre-1966 Grand Prix cars, 20-minute sprint for these machines that competed between the late 1950s and the 3-litre Formula One era arriving in 1966. This is the transition between front and rear engine Formula One, and as the lights go off, away we go. Will Nuttall from pole position in the Cooper T53 takes the lead. Cooper's first, second and third. Charlie Martin and Rudy Friedrichs behind, and Rudy in car number 12 looking to go the long way round the outside as they sweep through Farm and down towards Village. He's going to make second place his own. Charlie Martin on the outside, and those traditional green and white Cooper stripes that of course everybody is used to seeing on Mini Coopers. Well, this is where those colours came from, but very quickly 118 Sam Wilson in the Lotus 18 really scything through from his qualifying position of 7th and up into 3rd by the time they get onto the Wellington Straight.
Tremendous from Sam Wilson there as he came through the Village Loop section out onto the Wellington Straight in the Lotus 18, and he's passed, by the looks of it, past Rudy Friedrichs. Yes, he has. Now he's trying to get past Charlie Martin as they go into the left-hander at Brooklands, and they're all tippy-toeing around on this very, very slippery track, and through the right-hander at Luffield. The leader being Will Nuttall. He's made a bit of a break. The Lotus 25 there of Nick Fennell, number 29, as they came through Luffield. The very low slung car that you can see. We've got a spinner, a couple of spinners actually. One's a Maserati, but is it the Maserati or the Ferrari?
No, that's the 246
Ferrari, isn't it?
Dino.
Yes. Spun onto the inside at what looked like Luffield there.
And Nick Topless in another of the low-line Coopers. Notice that having started Topless started 20th. Geraint Owens, having started 16th on the grid in the Curtis, was up to about 10th place down the straight. So Geraint Owen in that ginormous Indy Roadster, the dark purple car or dark red car with the white noseband, just going in the right hand side of the shot. What a great start. He's got this enormous Indy Roadster right up behind the little Lotus in front of him. Look at that. Talk about the beauty and the beast. 77. What a start.
And yes, in the wet, I think that car is particularly, with Geraint at the wheel, because he's a good driver, is particularly tractable in the wet conditions, and he's chasing down the leading front engine car, which is the number 34, and they're in amongst the leading rear engine cars. This is remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely so. Now remember when we were talking at the very beginning of the day in the Formula Junior holding area that some of the front engine drivers were saying actually the front engine cars are probably more forgiving with limited grip than the mid engine cars, which are a bit more twitchy. The front engine cars are pretty predictable, but that's a great start from the Maserati. Car number 34, John Spears. That's an absolutely epic getaway. He's up to 5th place already, and Geraint Owen in 8th position. Now, that Indy Roadster was built to do 500 miles flat out, only turning left on a brick surface. There's no way that should be better than a pucker Formula One car in the wet going left to right. I mean, apart from the fact it weighs probably nearly 3 times as much, it's got twice as much power and 3 times the torque. He's absolutely exceeding what the car should be doing. And again, you can see the Maserati there just using it. Again, Stirling Moss, yes, it's a front engine car. Yes, empirically the rear engine car should be better, but it's got a bigger engine, more power. And Stirling Moss said it was the best balanced racing car he ever drove. And if you want balance anywhere, this is where you want it, in greasy conditions.
Well, John Spears has got another place there through the loop, and he's looking to take yet another place off Rudy Friedrichs, which I think by...
Well, he just got by Rod Jolly, who's nobody's fool in a Brabham. He's gone by Rudiger Friedrichs, and there's Friedrichs, car number 12, Rod Jolly behind him, car number 2.
He's up to 4th then, John Spears, in the Maserati 250F, a car that was driven by Jean Berat in period.
Were 1959 and 1960 really wet Grand Prix seasons? Is that why they didn't convert to the rear engine cars? This is this is not what you would expect to see in the drive for sure. Some very entertaining racing. Will Nuttall still leads, fastest race lap, 7 minutes and 8 seconds. That's how slow the first lap was.
And Geraint Owen is up past the Lotus 25 of Nick Fennell, so that puts him up to 8th place.
Are we going to get a front engine car on the podium? The answer is, if it doesn't dry out much more in the remaining 11 minutes, we just might. And again, Geraint Owen, there he is in car 77, sweeping through the Beckett session. Will Nuttall wondering if there's been a colossal accident behind him and there's a safety car out, because he's looking to see if there's anyone in his mirrors. Charlie Martin in the white and green Brabham in 2nd. The Lotus 118, the Lotus 18 of Sam Wilson in 3rd with his psychedelic helmet. And in 4th place is the first of our front engine cars, John Spears. The only car he's not sharing with Nigel Greensell, ironically enough.
And Geraint Owen takes another place, does he? No, not quite, into Stowe Corner. He was looking to go down the inside, but I think he was wise enough to know that he didn't want to put the other car in a dangerous position, but he's close behind.
Well, now also I'm pretty sure that thing will be on drum brakes, and the cars in front of him are probably a little bit better at slowing down, apart from the fact that they weigh 1/3 of what the Curtis does. But he's in front of the Lotus. I mean, that's, again, this is tearing up the form book, definitely. And again, look, as he unleashes the horsepower, he's got that big Offenhauser engine. It's only a 4-cylinder engine, but it's a thumping great power unit in the front of the car. That's why the Indy Roadsters are so long, not just for a long wheelbase for stability at high speed, but also because you've got to fit in that Offie engine.
And Geraint Owen at the moment chasing down the red with the green nose, that's the Brabham, and it's unfortunately got pushed off to the side of the track there, but he'll get back on again. But the Brabham BT3/4 for Tim Child just ahead is actually now been caught by Nick Fennell in the Lotus 25.
Yeah, and that's Tim Child just getting in too late on the brakes and just understeering wide. Geraint Owen luckily saw the danger coming and was able to open his steering and had enough escape road and runoff area to take to that. So mistake by Tim Child in the red car with the green noseband. But again, as they start to pony off down the straight, Nick Fennell's Lotus 25 dropping back a little. There's the battle for second place. Charlie Martin in the Brabham, in the Cooper rather, with the Cooper stripes. And is that Will Nuttall? It is. Will Nuttall's heading into the pit lane. This is now the lead battle. Sam Wilson in second place now in 1:18. There's the early race leader, Will Nuttall, in the pits. Now then, he was just saying to Ed, I hope you were his jinx yesterday, I hope you're not my jinx today. Ed has jinxed him. So it is Charlie Martin and Sam Wilson. John Spears in the front-engine Maserati 250F is in third place. At least he might be when we get him in shot. And this is the battle for the lead now, boys and girls.
And Sam Wilson, because he was here, had to come into the national pits, the heritage pits. There's no teams here at all. So Sam has popped out. He's an engine and car preparer. So he's jumped out of the car, pulled up the engine cover, and he's working on it himself. He'll know the car very well indeed. We may see him back out again, but not challenging for the lead.
No, that's Will Nuttall. This is Sam Wilson. He is challenging for the lead. Sorry. What was that hand gesture? It's easy to do. You know you're looking at Will Nuttall. Your brain knows you're looking at Will Nuttall. You know you're saying Will Nuttall. Just the words Sam Wilson come out. So Sam Wilson is there. And again, he is also a car preparer, but that's the Lotus 18. And the Brabham getting very squirrely. You can see how hard Charlie Martin is pushing. And Sam Wilson looking to go the long way round the outside. That's not going to work, but he's got to pile on the pressure, try and force the driver in front to outbrake himself, brake too late, carry too much speed out of Luffield, and again, look, big slide. Looks like the Brabham's not as nicely hooked up as the Lotus, but in the background, here comes the John Spears Maserati 250F. Could the Mazda win this? The answer is yes, it could. It is going quicker at the moment than these two.
And they're almost side by side again as they come up to Village, and the Lotus 18 of Sam Wilson on the outside, very, very sideways, and a spin for Charlie Martin. And the two cars go either side of him. Whoa. So John Spears in the front engine car is now in the lead. Remarkable drive.
I was just looking up to look at his last lap. His last lap, a 252.8. Charlie Martin did a 257.2 and a 256.7 for Sam Wilson. No wonder he caught them. He was 4 or 5 seconds quicker on that last lap alone, and that's before the spin. Charlie Martin has rejoined in third, but John Spears leads. Wow, what a race this is turning into. Did you have this in your selection? Well done if you did. What are tonight's lottery numbers?
And John Spears it is, who a little bit of understeer there in the front engine car. That's not surprising. And Sam Wilson in a car that looks as though it should be just trouncing the front engine Mazda, but not in these conditions with John Spears at the wheel. What a drive from him. And Sam Wilson following through in the Lotus 18 up towards Copse Corner.
Now it's drier here at Copse. Wilson going a long way offline. John Spears completely ignoring him. He's starting to use the full width of the track, the racing line, try and cross those curbs back on with the wheels straight. Don't want to be getting sideways over those, but he is still lapping or cornering a little quicker. Now, you said about the understeer, definitely in the Maserati, but the little Lotus is understeering as well. It's pushing away at the front, and so that means that Sam is also having to drift the car in classic style. And in these limited grip conditions, normal human beings, as these drivers are, can now start to put them into the sort of attitude that the Juan Manuel Fangios and Sterling Mosses of this world would have done in bone-dry conditions when these cars were racing at their prime. Of course, Fangio became a world champion for Maserati. A little twitch there as John Spears just eased the car into stow. It wasn't having it. And this is the moment where Charlie Martin, in too tight, just looped it around in the loop, and the pursuing cars very fortunate when either side. That was properly good reactions from both men. So what have we got left? 3 minutes 54 seconds. This plus one more lap. They're lapping at 2 minutes 54. So I don't think they're going to get a second after this, or a second lap after this. This should be the penultimate lap.
And visually, the red Maserati is further ahead now of Sam Wilson. So despite Sam's valiant efforts to keep up with John Spears, he's not closing in at the moment. It was 1.2 seconds at the timing line, which is a fair way back from where they are now. They're just coming through the loop and into Aintree.
Well, here is another front mid-engine battle, and again a mid-engine tiddler getting eaten alive by the Maserati 250F in front and the Cooper Bristol behind. So you don't often see a front-engine Cooper Bristol attacking a rear-engined Cooper, but Ian Nuttall in car number 21 is doing exactly that now again. Again, you see the Maserati in front, car number 248 just keeping his nose in front, Klaus Lehr. And Klaus started in 25th place. Where is he now? This is 13th place. That's a dozen places he's made up. That's ridiculous. Barry Cannell comes back in front in the Cooper, and again it's under braking where the Cooper is going to have the advantage. Much less mass to stop, it rotates a bit better, probably stops much more efficiently than the Maserati, but the Mazda's got more power.
And the Cooper Bristol at the back, that's actually been driven by Ian Nuttall. It's Will's dad. They both work together in their race preparation business, so they know the cars very well indeed. And three completely different cars coming down into Brooklands.
And just in front of them, in 12th place, car number 22, that's the third of the Maserati 250Fs of Elliot Hahn, and they're not catching him either. So that little Cooper is not getting on terms, just as we've seen in the lead group. John Spears still pulling away. His last lap was 2.5 seconds quicker than Sam Wilson. Here's the Cooper Bristol attacking the Maserati 250F. Now, that's not a battle that you would have seen very often in period either. Cooper Bristol has, by most standards, no right to be dicing with a Maserati 250F in front and a 246 Dino behind, because he's giving away half a litre in power. Not the least, but in these conditions, that's less of an issue. Effectively,
the Cooper Bristol is a Formula 2 car, you might call it, in which, as I think you mentioned earlier, Mike Hawthorne made his name before he got into Grand Prix racing, and the Maserati 250F was what that made the name of Sterling Moss before he got the drive with Mercedes in the Works Grand Prix team.
Exactly so, and the 250F and the 246 Dino, both 2.5 litre era Formula 1 cars, whereas, as you said, the Cooper Bristol, not a Formula 1 car, it's got a 2 litre Bristol engine, so when you're giving away 500cc and you've only got 2 litres, that's a big deficit. Here comes the Ferrari, looking down the inside. He's already gone by Ian Nuttall, and now picks up the place from Klaus Lehr as well. That's 2 places in 2 corners. The Ferrari certainly hitting its stride here with Richard Wilson. And meanwhile, here is John Spears counting down the moments. This is the last lap then, as they come down in front of the BRDC suite. Still in second place, Sam Wilson. And Sam is closer, but he's not going to be able to make a pass from there. He's going to have to rely on John Spears making a mistake, and Spears has been very good so far. Spears last lap 2:53.9, Sam Wilson 2:54.2, so closer, and he's on this lap quicker again. And this is where we're seeing the track now changing from being a front engine track to gradually becoming a mid-engine track. Sam Wilson is quicker again, but still not quite as quick. Charlie Martin remains third from Rod Jolly, Tim Child, and Geraint Owen in the behemoth Curtis 500 Roadster is still in the top 6.
It's interesting that Sam Wilson feels the need to run on the wet part of the track as he went into Cox Corner just to cool the tyres a little. So it's not all plain sailing for these drivers as the track dries out. And Sam Wilson now is closer than he has been for a few laps through the Beckett's S's. They've only got the Hanger Straight, Stowe and Club Corner to come before the finish.
Oh, and the slower car in front might be an issue for John Spears. This is going to be very close. This could be a real grandstand finish. As they used to say in the old days, a Silverstone type finish. John Spears looks in the mirror again. He's going to look in the mirror a third time. And Sam looking down the inside, Sam Wilson using the late braking of the Lotus 18. He's alongside into Stowe. John Spears is staying on the long outside line, trying to keep up that momentum, use the power of the Maserati 250F, which he does. He just gets his nose back in front. And down through the Vale as they exit the Vale and come into Club Corner. Now I think there's no chance for Sam Wilson to make a pass. It's only if he falls off that John Spears will lose this, but it is going to be victory for the Maserati 250F by inches from the Lotus. The front-engined revolution is back. Wow, what a finish. And in the wet conditions, I don't know how confident the front-engine drivers will be. That's going to be the question for Bryn, for John Spears, is did you think you stood a chance, or did you think the mid-engine cars would wipe the floor with you even more? And there's the Curtis. Top 6 finish for Geraint Owen. And he will have a smile as wide as the Curtis Roadster on his face, I'm sure. It was Charlie Martin who finished third in the Brabham, Rod Jolly's Brabham fourth, Tim Chant's Lotus in fifth, Geraint Owens in sixth. And here again, front engine battle, the 246 Dino versus Ian Nuttall's Cooper Bristol, Lotus 18 coming up behind and a Brabham behind them, but they're not going to be able to get by either. So this is going to be the battle for 15th and 16th. Klaus Lehr with the orange noseband, and behind with the white noseband on the Cooper Bristol, Ian Nuttall. By rights, probably victory should have been Will Nuttall's. Whether he would have held on against John Spears or not, we didn't get the chance to find out as he had to pull into the pit lane. But everybody else, a couple of wild moments. Lotus 18 there coming wildly off the wet curbs. Did make it safely across the line. Unfortunately, this car didn't. This is Katsu Kubota, isn't it? Yes, in his, is that a Bowmaker Finance coloured Lotus? Whoa! Getting caught out by somebody else changing their velocity or their minds. Katsu Kubota. So is that pale green? It's in my mind, that's Bowmaker credit. It may or may not be, but a great little view of how tiny these cars are. And these are Pucker Grand Prix cars, but very, very similar in size to the Formula Juniors that we saw just before the lunch break and very early this morning. Well, well, well. First of 2 races for the Historic Grand Prix Car Association's Prix 66 field. And John Spears is the race winner in the Maserati 250F. So perhaps just a salient indication of why some manufacturers clung on to the front engine formula for as long as they can. Of course, Maserati never really made a successful mid-engine car. By the end of the 250F era, their factory team had closed. Maserati was in too much financial strife to be able to go Grand Prix racing. Ferrari clung on to the dawn of the 60s with the 246 Dino. And then, of course, when they embraced the rear-engine revolution in 1961 with the Sharknose Ferrari, John Surtees won the World Championship. So it wasn't that they didn't know how to make a mid-engine car work, just that Enzo liked the horse in front of the cart rather than the other way around. And while the 246 Dino was still competitive, why change the habit of a lifetime if it ain't broke? Or whatever the Italian equivalent is. Well, John Spears wins in the Maserati 250F. Fantastic race to the checkered flag. And he was the quickest man on circuit for a long while towards the end of the race. Really got his head around the car. fantastic performance. Sam Wilson taking second in the Lotus 18, car number 118. And in third place, Charlie Martin's Brabham that spun out of what had just become the lead. There's Sam Wilson offering his congratulations. That's the kind of racing that they love. Closely fought, very evenly matched, and yeah, honours even. Tomorrow, if it's dry, then the chances are it will be a mid-engined win. It'll probably be a completely mid-engine podium, but racing drivers being racing drivers, you take your chances when you can. Well, I wonder what our drivers thought might happen compared to what did happen. There's only one way to find out. We're going to have to ask them. Bring.
Thanks very much, Martin. Yeah, and here with John, the winner. Now, first question for you, John, was how confident were you that in a front-engine car you could take it to the others?
Well, I had a bit of a prelude a month ago in Zandvoort. I put the car on pole in the wet there, so I know it handles beautifully, and it's a nice torquey engine, so you can it's great for these conditions. But when I saw the strength of the opposition out there, and the track was drying out pretty fast, I didn't expect it, so I'm over the moon.
It was quite remarkable. Of course, when Will Nuttall came into the pits, that opened up the race for everyone else a little bit more, but you had your work cut out all the way up to the very end. Sam was right on your shoulder, and he almost took you, didn't he, at the very end?
He did. I got a bit conservative towards the end, and then I saw him come out to Stowe, and I knew he'd have a go there, so I left him room, but made it a bit difficult for him, and we got there. So yeah, feel brilliant.
Fantastic stuff. Well done. It was highly appreciated by many people to see this front engine car, this beast, taking it to the others out there. So well done to you. I'm going to go and try and find the rest of the podium. Run on there to our race winner. Just having a quick look around though, and I can't find them. I think they've been whisked off to the podium right now. So just for a second, I'm going to hand back to Martin, and I'll try and find them. Back to you though, Martin.
Well, fantastic stuff from John Spears. What a, and look at it now. Look, sun's out, shining on the good. The front engine cars, obviously that is. Maserati 250F claiming victory. John Spears, 3800s ahead of Sam Wilson, and they will both be smiling for hours over that. Charlie Martin, what might have been, well, the same for Will Nuttall, I suppose, who could also have been a winner. Charlie Martin finished on the podium at least. Rod Jolly took fourth in his Cooper ahead of Tim Childs Brabham and Geraint Owens in the Behemoth Curtis Roadster. Tom Dark, 7th place. I didn't mention Tom because there was so much going on at the front, but Tom Dark, I'm going to tell you in a moment where he qualified. He was way down the grid after qualifying, so up to 7th, that's a very good result for him. And a real mix of front and rear engine cars. Elliot Hand's Maserati 250 ahead of Richard Wilson's 246 Dino, and the Maserati and Cooper Bristol battle. Klaus Lehr just holding off Ian Nuttall by a whisker. And again, Cooper Bristol's ahead of rear engine cars, ahead of mid-engine Coopers and Lotuses and everything else. The Aston Guy of Julian Ellison, a unique Formula One car. And the Nettuar Peugeot of Arnaud Koch, equally unique. The Talbot T26, the Talbot Lager of Luke Brands, making up about 10 places off the grid. Rudy Friedrichs failed to finish, and so too, I'm afraid, did Will Nuttall.